Good afternoon and welcome to Finding the Plot. My name is Sebastian Whittington-Smythe. Let's talk about the Bible, shall we? The Bible is an interesting book. Without it we wouldn't have Christmas, and then how would we know when it's appropriate to exchange gifts, have awkward office parties, and get ridiculously drunk around a gaily adorned tree? There's the Book of Luke, which as far as I understand it is responsible for Easter, and thus the entire chocolate egg industry. There's the Book of Mega Drive, which is extremely popular in America as the Book of Genesis. I've personally always preferred the music of Genesis myself, but each to their own. But my favourite book of the Bible is the Book of Revelations. It's given us such great films as Omen. It is responsible for Iron Maiden's seminal album, The Number of the Beast. And of course, it gave us the Four Horsemen: Ric Flair, Tully Blanchard, Arn Anderson, and Ole Anderson. Now, eagle-eyed viewers among you may have spotted that was actually the Four Horsemen of Wrestling. That was a joke. The Book of Revelations actually gave us the other four, the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, who have become iconic characters in their own right. From X-Men to literature, you see them pretty much everywhere. And you see them in games. Games like Darksiders. And yet this preamble has all been for naught, because Darksiders isn't really about the Book of Revelations or the Apocalypse. I mean, yes, the basic premise does use names from the Bible and an apocalyptic scenario, but I have checked once, and not one person in the Bible uses a portal gun. Not one. But I guess, like Bible stories, Darksiders is also a lesson. It's a lesson in the self-serving nature of politics, the flaws in the two-party system, and preaches a form of nihilism as the way forward. So, sit back, relax, and pretend it's Christmas as we find the plot of Darksiders. Now, the first thing I'm going to say before anybody comments, I have never read the comics, and so this game, as always, unless otherwise stated, is being looked at in a vacuum. Now I've got that out of the way, for those new to the game, here is a brief plot synopsis. Heaven and Hell have always been warring, but was stopped by the Charred Council, who act as a form of overseer, in charge of maintaining the balance. What that is they never really elaborate on, but it's likely to stop one party from having too much cosmic power. The human race suddenly appears and the Charred Council calls for a truce that will last until the human race can compete with the other two factions. The Council has at their disposal the Four Horsemen, who act as their enforcers, should justice need to be served. When it's time for the apocalypse, the seven seals will be broken, the war between the three factions will begin, and the horsemen will arrive on the battleground. Somehow the apocalypse begins early and humankind gets wiped out as the war between heaven and hell spills onto the earth. War, one of the Four Horsemen, arrives, and in all the confusion the angel Abaddon gets killed. War gets blamed for all of this, and is imprisoned for 100 years, emerging into the wasteland that used to be the human world in order to clear his name. Now, you may be thinking, Sebastian, you dynamic, shimmering testament of all that is perfect. You said that this game isn't about the apocalypse, but you just outlined the plot and it's all there. It's all about the apocalypse. Yes, I did, dear viewer, but you see, this is merely window dressing. To understand the real story is to look at the characters and the factions. Firstly, we have Heaven and Hell, two factions who are constantly at each other's throats. Now, normally, Heaven is presented as good, as being morally perfect, the home of God and angels and Jesus, beings that love mankind and want the best for it. And Hell is the exact opposite, a home for the demons, the damned, the killers, the rapists, and all that is wretched. But in Darksiders, this is not the case. As I shall show you later, the denizens of Heaven and Hell are not so different. They are merely two factions who want to win, to secure power for themselves. And what of mankind? We don't see much of them because they die in the introduction, but they are little more than an inconvenience, something that gets in the way of these two factions, these political parties gaining power, and they get destroyed by this ageless battle, caught in the literal crossfire. Being that I'm in the UK, and perhaps I'm thinking of this because of the recent election, one could argue that Heaven and Hell could represent the Labour and the Conservatives, or in American terms, the Democrats and the Republicans. Two parties who are seen as the only two options by the majority, who jockey for power every few years, with the public being their toys, used as little more than playing pieces with which to score points. Indeed, the loyalty with which some follow their political party of choice reflects the kind of devotion that some have for religion. But we also have the Charred Council, which in English terms would represent the House of Lords, a British political chamber, an independent governing body of sorts that passes laws and scrutinises the government, holding it to account for its actions. Now, to those of you with more formal political education, I may have oversimplified it, but the point remains. Heaven, Hell, and the Charred Council resemble these real political roles very closely, and in their scramble for power, they have destroyed humankind. And one thing in particular highlights that these are the roles that the characters play, that this is a story about the characters and their motivations, their political goals. The fact that there is no urgency to the story. War is not trying to stop a time-sensitive calamity. He is not rescuing anybody who is on the brink of peril. No, everything has happened. It has happened over the course of 100 years. As I said before, the game specifically tells us.
How long was I gone?
In Earth years, about a century. Long enough for the last of the mouth-breathers to die off.
Okay, I know this is nitpicky, but that line actually does bug me a little bit. I understand that they are on Earth, and so a century is a relevant measure of time, but at the same time, these fellows are from other planes of existence. They may observe the passage of time differently. Certainly in the continuity of the game itself, it appears that this ordeal has been the first time that war has marched on Earth, at the very least since the current calendar was devised. How would Earth years be relevant to him? Is that a long time to these characters, who are presumably ageless and live for hundreds if not thousands of years? The watcher saying it reminds me a little of those people who needlessly say words in ultra languages, aus keinem anderen Grund als zu klingen klug. Perhaps that's just him toying with war though, because that's what he likes to do. But more on that later. The point is that everything significant has happened. Humankind has died off in these 100 years, at least as far as this game is concerned. Hell has won. War isn't supposed to be concerned with any of this as such, as he's a detective on a quest to find the truth to clear his name, and that can happen whenever he gosh darn pleases. So the game must therefore be about that struggle, the investigation and the motivations of the key personnel, the dramatis personae. So let us look at the key characters of the game and their motivations. I will begin with Vulgrim, the game's merchant. He is a demon who is tolerated by heaven because, well...
Few can afford his services, but perhaps you can strike a bargain.
The council confers with demons now, does it?
Since the truce was broken, some demons have fallen from the Destroyer's favor. Vulgrim is one such outcast. He has long sought an audience with us.
And he is perhaps one of the most powerful characters in the series. He holds items and skills that War can use and learn that he depends on, and he only hands them over if he pays a high price in souls, and Vulgrim devours the souls because that's what he wants.
There were a few young ones. Oh, spectacular.
And that's really the kicker. He doesn't need to consume souls, he just feels like doing it in Darksiders 1. In Darksiders 2 he accepts money, so it shows that his price is made up by him, based on his whim, what he wants at that time. The prices for items is prohibitively high, to the point that I rarely bought consumables because I would be shooting myself in the foot when there were permanent enhancements available for similar costs. Vulgrim also controls a network of passages called serpent holes that enable War to travel from area to area, something that is essential at one point of the game when War gets stranded at the Twilight Cathedral.
Serpent holes, ancient paths that worm their way beneath the husk of this dead world and beyond. I use them to get about, and for a price, so can you.
What do you want, Vulgrim?
A trifle, really? The Chosen's heart. I felt its power the moment you stepped from that tower.
It is Vulgrim's greed and War's ability to satisfy that greed that allows War to continue his mission and clear his name. Vulgrim has no compassion and only does things for profit. He is in no way a good guy. Without his help, War would certainly fail his mission, yes, but he only does it for a profit. He is a greedy character with no morals who would happily watch the world crumble and sit on the only thing that could save it if nobody could satisfy his desires. It doesn't matter if it's heaven succeeding or hell, he will simply do what he needs to thrive, and to obtain his asking price for his services. In that, he is much like Nestle. We see this theme running through many of the characters with the exception of perhaps Ulthane and Azrael. For instance, let's turn our attention to Samael, a gentleman who looks not unlike Dave Grohl's Devil from the tribute video. He was once one of the highest ranking officials in Hell, who fell from favour when he disagreed with the company that his master kept. As a result, he was stripped of his power and banished, imprisoned in the Scalding Gallows. During War's quest to get to the tower, where he hopes to battle Straga and get to the bottom of what happened previously, he encounters Samael, who tells him that he knows how to get to the tower. Samael reveals that 4 chosen must be defeated in order to gain access, and so War dutifully goes off to kill them. They are Tiamat, Silitha, the Stygian, and the Griever. However, Samael was lying. These 4 of Hell's chosen were actually in possession of some of Samael's power. When War brought their hearts to Samael, he was replenishing his power so that he could escape. In doing so, Samael revealed that he was perfectly content to lie to War to free himself, and to, presumably, go off on his own path independent of heaven or hell. His only redeeming quality, it seems, is that he kept his end of the bargain, but it is unlikely that he would be much assistance to the Horsemen should a third Darksiders be made. But this shows that he has no loyalty to his faction, his political party. His opening gambit was to offer War access to Straga, who was protecting a key strategic location for Hell, the Well of Souls, and he granted him the power to bring Straga down. If he was loyal to Hell, he would not have done this. So this raises the question as to why Samael voiced disapproval at Satan's company, and what purpose it served to voice this, unless he saw the company as competition for his own personal political gains. But enough about the demons, let's turn our attention to the divine. Abaddon was an angel, an agent of heaven, somebody who would expect to be portrayed as pure. But as it transpires, the whole plan for initiating the apocalypse early was his doing, as we see here.
Open attack on the Dark Kingdom would violate the treaty. What you're proposing is madness.
As real evil darkens every corner of creation, heaven waits. The council ties our hands.
To question them is to question the Creator. Do you believe you know better?
Yes, old friend. I do. When the seals are broken, Hell will send its chosen to declare battle rights. Their leaders will be gathered in one place, and there we will sever the head of the beast.
Yes, he broke the rules. He started the apocalypse to get the jump on the agents of Hell, to hopefully assassinate the leaders all in one go. In doing so, he knowingly and willingly sacrificed mankind for his plan. Initially, he argues his plan as if he is helping the Divine. As Abaddon explained it, he would destroy 6 of the 7 seals, alerting Hell that the End War was soon to begin. At this point, the generals would convene to plan strategy, allowing him to assassinate them all in one go. In a bid to give himself plausible deniability, though, he convinced Ulthane, an ancient maker, to reforge the seals when it was done, so that when the Charred Council inquired, Abaddon would be able to show the intact seals and put the blame on Hell. However, it was important to leave the 7th seal intact so as not to summon the Horsemen, or they would get in the way. But things didn't go to plan. In the prologue of the game, we see this war beginning and Abaddon's shock at War's arrival.
The 7th seal was not broken!
This distraction allowed him to be killed by Straga. Yet when he died, his soul was brought before a female, who was thought to be Lilith, who coerced him to become the Destroyer.
You're already damned, so I offer you this choice. Would you serve in heaven or rule in hell?
And this is where we understand that Abaddon is, like the others, a character who is not moved by his allegiance, but by his own selfishness and ambition. He wanted to destroy Hell not because they were a danger to good or any other grand concept, but because they were a threat to his own ambitions for power. In being given the choice to serve in heaven or reign in hell, he chose power for himself. He happily doomed mankind, turned his back on his friends and his lover, Uriel, because he wanted to be powerful, and thus he became the Destroyer, the creature that Samael so despised. But why did Samael disagree with him being close to the Dark Lord? Because of his displeasure at the former angel being close to the ruler of Hell, or because he represented a bump in his road for power? Such political machinations. And yes, this is exactly what they are. Much as in real life, we see allegiances changing when it suits the individual, and power struggles that ignore the main party line except when it suits the goals of whoever brings it up. These power struggles are certainly not between rival factions, but rival individuals. But what of War? When the game properly begins, War has been punished for coming to Earth and starting the apocalypse early. He has lost most of his powers and is being followed by the Joker. I mean the Watcher.
Let's lay down a few ground rules. Until this is over, you're a dog on a leash.
His job is to find the truth about what happened, and to dole out justice, to clear his name. But oddly enough, he actually lives up to his name and seems more interested in wanton destruction than actually finding out the truth. From the off, he happily fights the zombies and anybody who steps in his path. He makes his aforementioned deal with Samael, and twice the Chosen speak to him.
One of the chosen, I can grant your every wish.
Can you restore the balance?
Did Samael tell you how he came to bear his tainted blood? Why his accursed power beats within our breast? It is not the tower that the Chosen protect, horsemen. Our charge is to prevent Samael's return at any cost.
With Tiamat, he doesn't even wait to hear if she can bring humans back, despite her offer to do so. Granted, perhaps she can't, but how are we, the player, supposed to know this for sure? This is a world in which the impossible is possible. We're talking about a world where God and Satan truly do exist, and where everybody has the potential to move in mysterious ways. Yet, even if she can, it seems like War was posing a rhetorical question, because all he wants to do is kill her so that he can get to the Straga's tower. And kill her he does, leaving her as torn apart as Tommy Wiseau was by Lisa. With Silitha, he discovers the truth, that Samael's tasks are to aid Samael's escape. Yet War does not care. It's a means to an end. If Samael is going to destroy the universe, or indeed do something even worse, like release another CDI Zelda game. And I am talking about the gameplay only, of course. The stories are fantastic. Why, the symbolism of bombing Dodongos while swinging one's fist? Well, just wait till I review that one. But I'm getting off track. The point is, it doesn't matter what Silitha's doing, because freeing Samael opens the way to more opponents who he can dismember with joyous abandon. And I expect you'd quite like to battle with Samael too. I mean, if you want to see how much he loves to fight, he even picks fights with Ulthane, no matter how nice Ulthane is being. I mean, look at that, the lovable Big Oaf makes him a delightful gun, custom made in miniature, at least relative to his own Hulk hands. And he threatens to shoot him for his kindness. And I bet he would have done just that, if it wasn't for the fact that he'd have more chance of strangling an elephant to death with toilet tissue than killing anybody with that puny firearm. And perhaps War is right to be angry with him. I mean, why would Ulthane give him an ineffectual cap gun if not to mess with him and possibly get him killed? That complete and utter bastard! Anyway, without getting bogged down in details, War is happy to kill, and he does indeed kill Straga like this. Before he gets there, he meets this chap, Azrael, who has been imprisoned and forced to ensure that the Well of Souls keeps sending souls to the Destroyer, because that is the source of his power. Now, the Watcher really wants War to kill Azrael.
Treason! War, you will root out all involved and make them pay, starting with this one.
And in response to this, we have War's redemption, the pivotal moment where he shows himself to have a strong moral code.
We need him.
Actually, that's about as moral as he gets. He doesn't spare him because it's right and good or anything like that, but because he needs him, because he saves them from the collapsing tower following Straga's defeat and takes them to Eden, where War visits the Tree of Knowledge to get some form of revelation. A revelation of how the Watcher will betray him, and then apparently kill him. Wow, what a twist. He also sees the truth about everything, but we know most of that anyway by now, and I'll get to the Charred Council in a second. It's interesting that when Abaddon visited the Tree of Knowledge, he had a vision that confirmed that he was best off following his desires to betray heaven, something that was perhaps transformative to his own personal identity, if we assume that he previously held some loyalty to heaven itself. For War, he merely confirms that everyone is just awful, and that the person who keeps threatening to kill him, yes, that person, is going to follow through. I suppose that makes him actually the most honest person in the game. Speaking of honesty, let's see how honest Azrael is.
And how do you propose to leave the tower once Straga has been dealt with? Straga and the tower are one. Even if you manage to defeat him, you'll be trapped without me.
So, the entire reason that we let Azrael survive, the tower collapse that he saved us from, that was a lie. The tower didn't collapse. We shouldn't be surprised, really. If it wasn't for him and Ulthane being Abaddon's stooges in this whole thing, War wouldn't be in this situation and we as a species wouldn't be extinct. Of course, War knows this now, but Azrael does still have a use, because, well, War is more annoyed at Abaddon for getting him into another fine mess, and Azrael is the only one who can transport War to him so that they can settle this thing with fisticuffs, like gentlemen. And so, basking in the knowledge that he has gained, we understand why War is a nihilist. Through his journey, he has seen that everybody is serving themselves, and the Tree of Knowledge has confirmed it by showing that nobody, be they from heaven, hell, or the Charred Council, is to be trusted. Their philosophies are all posturing to ensure that they have total control of existence. And this petty power play is what has destroyed the kingdom of man, created wars, and royally inconvenienced war's day. And so, to War, his acts of destruction, murder, and just his general demeanour have been justified. Also, as it happens, to kill Abaddon, War needs a new sword, which is forged by travelling the game world collecting Triforce shards. I mean, sword shards. Say what you will about Darksiders' desire to ape Zelda, it sure is thorough in its mimicry. And this mission is actually War's final direct act of nihilism, and one that is meta in that it messes with the player. If we look at the definition of nihilism as per Wikipedia, it states, nihilism is the belief that all values are baseless and that nothing can be known or communicated. It is often associated with extreme pessimism and a radical skepticism that condemns existence. A true nihilist would believe in nothing, have no loyalties and no purpose other than, perhaps, an impulse to destroy. So up until now you have been levelling up War's various weapon sets, which allows the player to play with their favourite style, and prioritise that style as each weapon has different strengths, weaknesses and movesets. Suddenly, War himself decides that the only way to kill Abaddon is to get a sword that cannot be levelled. Its power is set, and that's it. It must be used to beat the game. All of your hard work and expectations of an RPG, that being that progression and personalisation are in preparation for the final encounter, are wasted. War has decided himself that he will destroy your expectations, and that the conventional ways of the genre are not for him. So this is now your sword, and to hell with the way you've played the game up until this point. On the way to doing this, War bumps into Uriel. She's been a bit of a thorn in his side for most of the game, obsessed with killing him because she thinks War killed Abaddon. As an aside, I do apologise for the sudden sequential story recap, but these scenes all show War's final commitment to his cause. He battles her, but declines to kill her, instead doing this.
I, Uriel of the Hellguard, champion of the White City, call you, horsemen, to Nex Sacramentum. Because Abaddon said you understood honor, and because he was the best of us.
The death oath cannot be broken until one falls by the hand of the other. I accept.
Yes! What are you waiting for? Harvest this wench! What? Don't you dare walk away from me!
The next sacramentum is mine. I decide when the angel dies, not you.
This is War's ultimate gambit. He knows that at some point he will be betrayed by the Watcher. But by invoking Nex Sacramentum, the Deus Ex Machina at play means that Uriel has to kill him. Nobody else can. And then he battles Abaddon in a boss fight that I was so good at that I actually broke it. Yes, see, this is how you beat him. He lands, you slap him, batter him, and repeat. As it turns out, to finish the fight, you have to let him attack though, or it won't trigger the cutscene that lets you do this bit. And then you battle him in angel form.
You have taught me something, Abaddon. Sometimes duty must be cast aside to do what must be done. It is not for duty that I kill you now.
But yes, afterwards the Watcher reveals that he planned on killing War all along once his usefulness had served its purpose. So to honour Nex Sacramentum, Uriel kills War first. She then breaks the seventh seal, which calls the Horseman and brings War back, which frees him from the Watcher's control and allows War to kill him. Well, that was easy. They then have this little exchange.
You knew. You knew what would happen here, what I would do. That's why you spared me.
No.
Then why?
Because I would not have the last of heaven's honor die with its champion.
All debts are repaid. The duty I uphold, it may call me to raise my sword against you. And if that day comes, I won't hesitate. You will be hunted. The White City for certain. The Council, and there will be others. You would wage this war alone?
No. Not alone.
And that is the ending. Essentially, she realises that War knew what was going to happen, so set up events so that she would kill him and then bring him back. War claims he didn't, but that's pretty obviously a lie. And he says that he wouldn't have the last of Heaven's honour die with its champion. But how is she honourable? The wench doesn't even apologise for A, killing him, or B, attacking him and trying to kill him all those other times for the charges that the Charred Council laid on him. I mean, the Charred Council have authority and he was investigating. Surely people of Heaven, at least, should respect that and give War some sort of immunity. But nope, she judged him, something that God is only meant to be able to do. And he wasn't even guilty. Uriel says that all debts are repaid, but what debts? There are no debts. You can't accuse somebody of murdering someone and then act like they've paid off a debt when they prove that they're innocent by, ironically enough, killing the person that they're supposed to have killed in the first place. Hold on. There was a movie about that, wasn't there? What was it called? Double Jeopardy. Wait, does this mean that the game is No, forget it. I've already committed to the politics thing, let's just go with it. Anyway, he essentially says that he doesn't care that Heaven, Hell and the Charred Council will be after him because he rejects them and he and the Horsemen are going to do a Fleetwood Mac and go their own way. As for the Charred Council, what did they want? And why did I leave them until the end? It's because everything is their fault, and the game's message hinges directly on them. They, as I have said before, are the moderators of sorts who keep Heaven, Hell and formerly mankind in check. They were mortally insulted by how Abaddon broke the rules and attacked Hell, and they knew exactly who was responsible all along. Heaven needed to be punished for their indiscretion, but the Charred Council knew that they could not directly punish Heaven without looking to favour Hell. Yet Abaddon was now with Hell, and so they also needed to be punished. Yet should the Charred Council punish both, it could lead to both retaliating, compromising the Charred Council's authority. Thus, they needed help.
We cannot stop Abaddon, but there are others who might, if they had reason. We cannot send the four. Without proof, there is no justice, only murder. They will see no reason in this assassination. We will send one, for whom vengeance is reason enough.
Yes, 3 of the 4 horsemen were too honourable, ironically, to break the rules laid out in their job description and act as policemen for comparatively petty crimes. Only War was unstable and violent enough to meet their needs. So what is the moral? Well, Darksiders is vehemently against the two-party political system that exists in the UK and US. That is, 2 political parties who always go against each other, swapping power every now and again. It exposes them as being near enough identical. 2 groups that put up wildly different fronts, and yet, at their core, are populated by self-serving individuals who want to execute their own ambitions and use their position of power as a stepping stone. In playing as War, we see how both parties are responsible for the destruction of humanity, and how they are as bad as each other. We are the outsider who may also be imperfect, but here's the third option. He is portrayed as being stronger, better, more honest, and an alternative. War rejects Heaven and Hell, stands with the other horsemen, the other outsiders, and this message is shown to be positive. In the way the story seems to pan out in Darksiders 2, it appears that the horsemen are hoping to bring back and save humanity. We are unlikely to find out how this plays out due to the collapse of THQ, but never say never. The point is that the third option, the nihilistic option, is the one that Vigil Games believes will save mankind, not the established 2 parties and their lackeys. But before I go, I must comment on how this story reminds me of BBC television series The Thick of It. No, really. The Thick of It is an excellent political satire that sees a government department who routinely messes things up and has to avert political calamity by manipulating others to fix the mess, while still maintaining power and keeping the department somewhat clean. This process is usually overseen by the fiery-tempered and psychotic Malcolm Tucker. I'm sure it's not too hard to see the parallels between them, as the 2 lead powers in the game jockey for power while exposing their own personal flaws, and using their platforms to serve their own interests, and treading on anybody who gets in their way. And the Charred Council uses one who is completely innocent of any wrongdoings to fix everything, while being followed by a psychopathic enforcer who goads and browbeats him at every turn. But then, that means that the Watcher is Malcolm Tucker.
You breathe a word of this to anyone, you mincing fucking cunt! And I will tear your fucking skin off. I will wear it to your mother's birthday party, and I will rub your nuts up and down her leg whilst whistling Bohemian fucking Rhapsody, right? Go and stand in that fucking corner. Stand over there, right? And do not move, or I will perform a fucking living fucking autopsy on you with a fucking rusty spade, and I'll have your kidneys for fucking cuff links. You cannot fuck me. You cannot fuck me. I am unfuckable. I have never been fucked. And if you fucking try and fuck me, you'll find my fucking ass will fucking grow fucking fangs
now come and listen
fucking
to me.
snap your
Will
fucking
you listen
cock
to
off.
me?
Malcolm
Tucker, will you listen to me?
Yeah, fuckity bye.
And on that bombshell, that is the plot of Darksiders. Or perhaps I've been talking bollocks this whole time.